Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. CMC connects people and ideas through community conversations and forums, just like this one nearly every week. I'm Annie Marsico, Assistant Vice President in Local Government Relations at The Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. I'm also a proud member of the CMC Board of Trustees. We are so grateful to today's sponsors, Barton Mallow, the Columbus Regional Airport Authority, HNTB, Public Sector Consulting, and Turner Construction. Thank you to the presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch, and the Ellis for hosting us. Every CMC forum takes a village. Let's thank everyone supporting today's program. Big things are happening in Central Ohio with top leaders. Today, we'll dig into some of the biggest construction and development projects happening right now in our region. We'll explore where big ideas come from and the partnerships and workforce that's essential to turn big dreams into tomorrow's Central Ohio reality. It's my great honor to welcome a great panel of Central Ohio leaders. Please welcome Pamela Boratyn, Director of the Ohio Department of Transportation, Connor Brogan, Anduril's Arsenal 1 project leader, Matt Kunz, Vice President and Columbus General Manager for Turner Construction, Joseph Nardone, President and CEO of the Columbus Regional Airport Authority, and our host, returning once again to CMC, Angela Ann, news anchor with WBNS 10 TV. Angela, welcome back to CMC. We'll look forward to today's conversation.
Annie, thank you. I'm a lot taller on TV. Hold on. My colleagues will attest to that back there. I am so excited to be back here with all of you and back at CMC, and especially on this topic because, full disclosure, when I was a kid, I loved to build things. I mean, who didn't have a cardboard fort, right, in your living room, or a sandcastle that just got blown away by the water? But now I do news. So I'll let you guys talk about building and thinking big, but I think it's safe to say, and looking around this room, that we all know Central Ohio is booming. We've been booming, actually, and we're pretty much in the height of it right now. That's why 10 TV created our Boomtown series. And for those of you who are followers, thank you, Kenny, and thank you so many others. It's really been an exciting franchise to launch in the last few months because we get to highlight the many great projects these folks do here on the panel, but many of you as well. And we look at the challenges, but we also get to look at the solutions. And so that's why the Boomtown series, I think, is going to boom along with Central Ohio. And really highlight the good work that's being done, but what we need to do so that families that want to stay here can live here the way that they want. So I'm going to get right to our panels and start with my first question to each of you. You all have at least one big project on the horizon. Can you put into perspective how this is really setting up Central Ohio for the growth? And I'm going to start with Joe down there because right now so many people are flying through the airport. We've got spring break and we know there's a huge construction project out there.
Thank you, Angela. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everybody's having fun because I can tell you we're having a blast at Columbus Airports. I have to start by introducing Kenny McDonald, who is one of my board members, one of my bosses, and talk about what we're doing out there. We are making significant progress. I suggest if you come to the airport, you come early. Kristen, is that an important thing to say here? So seriously, this work has started about 7 years ago when our board of directors, a very visionary group of folks, the best and the brightest in Columbus, said, hey, we need to build a terminal. So over the last 7 years, we went from having $15 million saved for this terminal to nearly $250 million. And because of the leadership of our board and our staff, we're able to deliver what you are seeing. If you've seen the plans, it's extraordinary. We've had Gensler design it, the world's largest architect, and we are second to none in Columbus on this terminal project.
Matt, I know we look around Central Ohio and we can say, oh, Turner built that, Turner built that. Talk about some projects, especially we've got the Ohio Fairgrounds.
Well, what I'm not building is the airport. but
Whoops.
that's okay, Joe. It's okay.
We don't talk about that.
But we love him, and we love Turner.
That's fine. I think there's some really great stuff going on around town. One that I don't think a lot of people know about is the Ohio Expo Center. So it's been in the news about what they're doing, but I think what it's turning into is bigger than what anyone ever expected. And whether it's the new venue spaces, probably the most important thing and the most fun thing is the carousel. 20 years in the business, I've never been involved in building a carousel. Or sitting with the governor and the governor's team choosing the animals that we're building for the carousel. So a lot of surprises on the way, but it involves a prehistoric fish that was in Ohio and a very plump pig with a ribbon. So, but you take that away from it, Nationwide Children's Hospital, big endeavor, massive impact on the community. Ohio State Wexner Medical Center, another big job that my partner Nigel's doing. And then there's billions of dollars of data centers that we have under construction right now too that bring their own unique thing in the tech center to it. And I think if I go back to 2017 when the first one showed up, I think that was kind of that catalyst that what made Columbus is what it is today, and it drove more business, more tech, more things like Anduril's doing, and it's very exciting to see that. So I don't think it's stopping anytime soon. That's Kenny's job over there if we can keep doing that, okay? But it's very exciting to be in Columbus right now in Central Ohio.
Was there a favorite animal on the carousel that you can share with us? Just curious.
Not yet.
Oh, darn. No scoop yet.
I can't take his news piece.
Okay, all right. Obviously, we have all heard about Anduril coming to Central Ohio. Huge news just a couple of months ago, continues to be so. So Connor, talk about Anduril, why you really chose Central Ohio, but how you feel that's going to set us up for the growth expected.
Yeah, so I think maybe kind of to start on who we are. Anduril founded in 2017. And Arsenal One for us is a pretty large investment. Just give you like a little bit of lay of land on how large of an investment this is. Before Arsenal One, we had about 1 million square feet total globally. We had about 5,000 employees. Arsenal One is going to be 4,000 employees, 5 million square feet. And so for us, it was really important to find a home that had direct flights to Los Angeles. But more generally than that, it was really strong labor force, really strong partnership. And so the growth that we're anticipating here is really going to come from partnership in the community, ODOT, working with Pickaway County, working with Jobs Ohio crew. And the investment is really just getting started. We're planning on ramping up our first initial hires this quarter. We're going to build or start hiring about 50 to 100 people to start, growing to about 300 through the next year. And then year over year, we're going to build through the next decade through about 4,000 people, and it's going to require a ton of investment.
And I think the one thing that all these projects have in common is the infrastructure that we need on our roads. So that's where, Director, you come in. The governor just signed a beautiful $11 billion package for you to play with. Talk about that for us.
Yeah, so exactly. Everyone on this table causes all these things for ODOT to have to deal with. So if Turner Construction, we're vying with you to get those people in that we need to use to build our highways. You need them too, and you need the same materials, equipment, workers. So we're vying for that. And construction inflation is bad, so it makes it very difficult. It makes it hard to have competitive bids for ODOT, and makes it hard for us to stretch our dollars. However, all that being said, we have to respond to all of these things that are happening and all this growth. And it is very clear that Columbus is growing. Statewide study we had shows that Columbus, Central Ohio is one of the areas that is absolutely growing very fast, and we've got a lot of congestion and a lot of issues. So as you all know, we got the big build up here on I-70. There's $1.6 billion that's being put into fixing all of that on the highway there. That's $400 million of it's already built. There's $600 million that's under construction now. And there's another $650 million that's planned in the future that's not funded. But it will, what's happening now, as you can see, is building the flyover bridge, which will open by the end of the year. We've got the caps that we'll be doing on High Street and 3rd Street and 4th Street, connecting up urban streets to get movement onto the highways moving out east. So that's what's going now with the big build. The one that will be coming will be connecting, I forget, let me look. I gotta remember my notes, I've only been around for 6 months here. But it's Miller-Kelton. It'll be from Broad Street out to Miller-Kelton, and then there'll be some changes up on 315. But that's not the only projects. There's projects going on, there's $40 million that will put the second lane, taking 270 up to onto 71 up by Polaris. There's the Silicon Heartland that's out on the east side, where there's a tremendous amount of local projects and state projects with 161, looking at 62, State Route 37, 36, 37. So, and then on our track, we just recently had a couple of projects. One for Anduril is we're going to be looking at a study to build a intersection at 23 and 752 because of the growth that you're going to be having there. And then we're doing also on 33 for Rickenbacker. So that's a lot of work. I will say the $11 billion, $3.2 billion of it is slated for the construction season coming up on about 950 projects.
Director, you were saying to me, we were talking earlier, that all of this doesn't come without challenges, right? We talk about the good, but there are obviously challenges. And some people even in this room that might say, what we're building now is not going to be able to handle what's already coming our way. Like we're building, I forget the term, obsolete building or something like that. So can you talk about that? Like, are we behind with the building for the roads?
So here's where we are in reality, and we're not the only state. This is happening across the entire country. And it really has to come down to funding. You know, you can have all the great plans in the world, but if you don't have the funding, you're just not going to get them built. So, as I said, we have a very healthy budget that's going to let us do these projects, do our maintenance, do snow and ice removal, do all those kinds of things. But coming, we see, and I talked about this during my testimony on the budget, both in the House and the Senate, we see in 2028 there is going to be a deficit in that we will not have the necessary funding to meet the program, which means you're not going to have the level of funding you need to do all the projects that you see coming and planned. So the statewide study I talked about, that was a study specifically to look at economic development and where is ODOT at and are we in the right places. Good news is we are in 51 of 72 hotspots, a $13 billion investment, of which we have $6 billion is unfunded. But we have 21 other hotspots that we got to plan for. We don't know the cost. Those will be added to that. So the challenges are going to be real, and looking at alternative ways to fund the Department of Transportation and our highways and our roads. As I said, it's across the country. We are working with the Federal Highway Administration. ODOT itself, it recognizes this, and we're doing things that we can to try to deflate some of that inflation with our project delivery, our project development, our timelines. We're looking at ways to make technology to make your surfaces, concrete and asphalt, last longer. But we're also talking to the feds to see if they can give us more flexibility for core funding, not tie our hands, so we have a better way to use it, and to reduce regulations, which cause delay and cause us more costs. So those are real challenges.
They are, and I think that's a great segue to the next question, which is the collaboration that has to happen between companies like Anduril and even the airport. Joe or Connor, can you talk about, when you have massive projects like Anduril coming in, how do you work with ODOT and local companies to say, all right, we need you, though, to help us build that infrastructure?
So, Angela, we start with transparency, and we start by offering ourselves to be better. So how can we serve others? I can tell you a $2 billion project like our terminal is very complicated. It takes a lot. We've had great experiences with the community. We have great experiences with our business partners. I can tell you, for those of you in the construction industry, Amit Ghosh from the city of Columbus, we were very concerned about our building permit. The city delivered our building permit early. So those are the kinds of things that make a huge difference on a project. The Anduril project is a thrill for all of us to be even a small part of it. We're so excited about that. So it's a commitment. It's making sure that we have an urgency to serve and to continue completing and executing on our goals to help others succeed.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, Joe doesn't have to help us, to be clear. He does not have to go out of his way to help us. He does not have to go out of his way to meet with us. And everyone in the community in Ohio has been incredibly gracious with their time, meeting with us, problem solving. We had a pretty dedicated team working on this project, and just like we want to be able to stand up from our computer, look across the aisle, ask them questions, for this project to succeed for Anduril, you also need people in the community, in the state, that you can pick up the phone and call. One specific example, Tim Coburn, I think, is in the audience here from Pickaway County. the amount of calls that he picked up from me as we were working through October and November and December, trying to work on diligence and trying to work on negotiations, is astounding, and we don't take that for granted. I think one of the things that we were looking for is a state and a community that was going to partner with us as we tried to build this out. Director here talked about kind of the challenges that she is facing with building out the roads, and those challenges are real, but so too is going to be the hiring, so too is going to be build the infrastructure, the airport development. We have a parcel of land partnering with his team on Rickenbacker Airport. These are all really hard things to do. And it would be foolish of us as a company to think that we could do it alone. You need partners in the community. You need partners in the state to do these things with. And so the way, to answer your question, the way we think about this is to be transparent, be honest about what we don't know, kind of give insight into what we're thinking around development. If we hit roadblocks, be kind of overt about the things that we're struggling with, and then have people on the other side of the aisle who we can partner with. The next 10 years for Anduril are a really big 10 years. I think they're really big 10 years for the United States around national security. And for us to be successful, we believe deeply as a country, requires places like Arsenal 1 to be successful. And for places like Arsenal 1 to be successful, you need community engagement, and you need state engagement.
Matt, do you want to add anything?
No, the one thing I think that we have different here is I deal with 48 offices throughout the United States, and the consistent theme I hear, unless it's a Nashville, a Charlotte, or Texas, is why do you guys have all the jobs? Like, we just want one of those jobs you guys have, and I say, we're not Turner, we aren't creating these projects, but the people around us are. And I think we have a playbook that other entities, other communities, other states are very jealous of. And if you look at our neighboring states, I think they're trying to do it now. They're taking the Jobs Ohio and the One Columbus playbook, and they're putting their state name on it and sticking it out there and hoping it works. And it does, because it's been refined. And there's no way we could scale what we do and do it as fast as we do without everyone in the community, between the permits, or it be state legislation, or local political figures pushing the buttons to make the stuff go, because everyone knows at the end of the day, what's good for you is good for everyone. And I think it's that Midwest mentality. It's always that way, kind of Midwest or bust. And I think this is really, we're not at the peak of it. I think we're going to keep going with it, but I hope we continue this attitude as we grow bigger and bigger every day.
Director, did you want to wrap up that question?
So I was just going to add something a little bit different than when you think of just as building roads. So I did want to say that absolutely it's got to be proactive, you got to have communication, you got to have trust with all your partners to get things done, anything done. But just to pick up on Anduril, because you would think of us as just building roads and highways, but we have a Drive Ohio division, and we have an advanced air mobility division that was just put in by the legislature. And we've hired Bob Tanner, who's here in the audience. He's got 30 years in both at the state and federal level for transportation and legal in this airspace. He's been with Aerodynamic, I probably forget all your jobs, but he's been with CODA, he's been with the John Glenn Airport, Battelle, Aerospace Partnership in Dayton, JetNets. But he comes to us with a world of experience, and he's going to be working on the technology for this vertical lifts and all the technology that will go with that, that's important to Anduril for what they're manufacturing. And he's got these connections, so it's back to partnering with, Ohio has the best universities, the greatest researchers, just all the partnerships that are necessary to make Anduril and Joby successful. And there's another way in which ODOT's helping that you don't really think about.
I love it. The collaboration, I think, is one thing that really makes Central Ohio stand out, and that's what I hear with a lot of other booming cities. Talk about the trending economic conditions. Earlier this year, we heard that the forecast, a little slower, a little dimmer than expected. So how much do each of you really put that as a factor in planning for your future? And I'll open that up to the panel. Joe, you've got the mic in your hand, so go ahead.
So, simple answer on that, Angela. Business, construction projects, the world likes certainty. So we have some uncertainty right now, which is not going to threaten our project, because we have a team and a board of directors who are extraordinarily committed to delivering this terminal project. but it could affect the budget. We hear that there's some numbers on the tariffs and other things that could affect our overall budget. We've worked for years to deliver this thing on a budget, and then you have things that come at you from outside of your control. You can't hold the architect responsible. You can't hold your team responsible. If a tariff comes, it's an issue. But as was said earlier, you're the ones that generate the energy. So Turner is terrific building buildings. Our airport team has delivered the energy to put $2 billion into the mouths of families in Columbus and Central Ohio. That took 7 years of hard work. And we don't like uncertainty, just like all of you in business don't like uncertainty, but we will power through it.
Yeah, it's the same as I said before. I mean, for us, we look out and we project, and we are projecting that we definitely are going to see a dip in our funding in 2028, that budget. We will not be able to support the programs that we've got in place. So choices will have to be made about what priorities do you fund. And it's like a house with the department. You know, we have $134 billion worth of roads, bridges, infrastructure in this state. And if you do not maintain them, if you do not take care of those bridges, you just got a much larger problem down the road. It's going to cost you more. You have deterioration of roads and also cost you lives. I mean, everything that ODOT does is about safety. It doesn't matter what the project is, there's safety that's in it. So we see 30% construction inflation. We do not see it coming down. And again, we're going to work in every way that we can with all of you. But again, with the boomtown that's going on, and the boom too, as I said, you see much more competition, and that drives up prices.
Yes.
That makes it difficult to get bids out and to get bids within what you think is an adequate price for you to be able to do a highway project, because we are responsible for the taxpayers. We have no personal money. It's all taxpayers' money.
Thank you, Director. I'm curious where you guys get your big ideas. I was telling Matt, I was looking on the Turner Construction website. It's beautiful, all the projects around the world. Obviously, you have clients who have specific things in mind, but do you look to other cities, states, countries for ideas when you have a client and you want to say, I want to build something unique like lower.com or so on and so forth?
Yeah, it's national, it's international, and it's become more international than ever. And you go back to, it's hard to have not just money, but labor resources. I think that's the biggest thing we're looking at now, too. We look to other states, our other offices, other entities to build stuff for us and ship it here, too. So whether it's prefabbing massive mechanical systems that can take the labor issue out of Columbus or the inflation out of Columbus and build it elsewhere, there's ways to do it. You got to get methodical about it. Our supply chain is international. We buy all of our own stuff. We have supply chain that focuses just on that equipment. You got to think outside of the box. And I think the advantage is that we can take these clients' ideas and bring them to Columbus. And 10 years ago, you would say, I'm from Columbus, and they'd say, Georgia? Or where? Now it's Columbus, Ohio, and it's the hot spot. And I think we're also seeing these other manufacturers set up shop here, too. But we're a bioscience community, we're pharmaceutical, we're manufacturing, we're so diverse, and I think that gives us the ability where almost people are looking at us, Angela, and saying, why can't we do what they're doing? So there's a lot of shared continuity between the vast majority of the U.S. and Columbus right now.
It's nice to be on that side of the coin, right? It is. Connor, my question for you, I think I saw something recently about the Fury being launched in Australia. If you don't know what that is, it's a super sleek, like, Tom Cruise fighter jet thingamajig. Did you like that? I'll say that tonight on the news. How do you, as Anduril and Arsenal One, when you talk about our defense, we have to be number one in the world, right? We have to be a step ahead of the other people out there who maybe want to do harm. So where does Anduril get its ideas on saying we can one-up this technology on that thingamajig?
On the thingamajig. Yeah, exactly. That's the technical term.
Thank you.
Anduril's core founding was based on really two observations. One was our near-peer adversaries, China in particular, is investing aggressively in autonomous systems. The second observation was our best and brightest in the US are not. They're not working on this. And so a lot of our ideas, a lot of our products come from inculcating internally greatness and taking what is effectively an arbitrage opportunity, which are smart engineers, smart product people who want to work on national defense. And the culture that our executive team has built at Anduril is one where a lot of these ideas are developed internally, organically. But we also then look to our supply base. A lot of our parts, we pride ourselves on trying to find things that solve the mission, solve the con-op, and aren't over-engineered, and as a result are cheap. And that requires a very robust supply chain to be able to do that. And so what we look to answer your question is we look internally. We have a lot of smart people who lead a lot of our divisions, but we're also pulling the best and brightest because the mission that we're focused on is so important. And our core thesis back in 2017 is proving out that a lot of smart people want to work on this problem.
Yeah. And Joe, I'm going to ask you that same question because obviously, Columbus International used to be Port Columbus, and I know a lot of newbies who move in, they're like, where's the water, right? So talk about where you get these big ideas for where you want to see air transportation for people who fly in and out of Columbus.
Thank you, Angela. I do want to start with the Anduril story. I can assure you that they do have the best and brightest. When you're in a meeting with these folks, they are unbelievable. They are the smartest people I've ever met. I mean, they are extraordinary, and they are so committed to Central Ohio. Mm-hmm. So as it relates to Columbus airports, the idea of a terminal had been kicked around for a long time.
Right.
Again, I will say the commitment of our team to have that grit to deliver and get to a position where we could execute was really important. But we have a lot of other things. We work with One Columbus. We work with Jobs Ohio. Connor mentioned our flight to Los Angeles. We run really fast. We are not built like a public sector entity. We are an independent authority, and our board of directors are in charge. They are in charge of what we're doing. But we are very flexible. One of the reasons we're able to build this terminal and do things is because we are an independent authority. Our board members are the decision makers. And when you're an engineer or an architect or a business person like Anduril, they're going to say, well, they can move much quicker than other airports because, with all due respect, a lot of airports are city, county, state, but the Columbus Regional Airport Authority is very nimble, and we're able to really figure out what's best for the community. And again, we have a board of directors. I've said this earlier, but they're Kenny McDonald, they're Karen Morrison from Ohio Health, they're Dr. Bertley. We have an extraordinary board of directors who challenged us when we were starting this terminal discussion and said, don't look at yourself as how you compare to other airports. Look at how you compare to Apple or Intel or any organization, because Columbus Airports needs to stay a step ahead of the other airports.
And a lot of that starts with attracting that skilled workforce, right, that we need to bring that workforce here. Can you share with the audience any tips or inside knowledge in how your company goes about attracting that workforce to come to Ohio?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for that.
Each of you, yes, please.
Because of our independence and because Columbus Airport's, long before I showed up at the door here, I was the CEO of Detroit Metropolitan Airport, a much larger airport, 35 million passengers. Enjoyed that experience, but Columbus is different. Everything that we talk about is true. So other communities can't compare to the things that are going on here. And Columbus Airports was attracting talent long before I arrived at Columbus Airports. And because of our ability to work, because of our ability to be independent, because of our willingness to think like an entrepreneurial business, we've been able to attract talent.
Connor?
I think, just one quick personal anecdote is, almost 5 years ago, in March is when COVID started, and that's when I came to Anduril. And the reason I came to Anduril, to connect it back to your question, is I looked at what I thought would be an important mission to spend my time on. And the world was kind of in peril. And for me, what resonated was I wanted to solve important problems with people who I deeply respected. And so how do we recruit great talent? I think it starts with the mission. I think it's actually, pretty easy for us in some ways to recruit great talent, because what we're finding is it resonates with people. They want to solve important problems. They want to solve hard problems. They recognize the unfortunate situations that are occurring around the world, and they're not going away. And so, Anduril takes training, it takes recruitment very seriously. We want the best and brightest, but we also want to train people up. We want to give them a home that they're proud of to work at. And so when we've talked through the Ohio recruitment strategy, the Ohio recruitment plan, there are people that do this really well today across the U.S. We don't think that we are the only people that can do this well today, and so we're looking to the industries that we think we admire, and that comes from everything from pay packages and incentives for employees to benefits, but also the training that we want to do on the job. And so, we start with our mission. We're unapologetic about what our mission is. We find it resonates really well. But then we also want to give people really good jobs that they're proud of. And we think that's exactly what Arsenal One's going to provide.
Matt, our director, would you like to add to that?
I think about the trade side of things, and let's take the national side of it out of the picture. There's one of our best trade partners sitting in the audience, a mechanical contractor that dear friends with, and they've done a great job of finding partners from the outside of Ohio to come with them, to come do work with them. And I think that's that Columbus way of, if we can't do it, we're going to lose it, so let's figure out a way to all go do this together. But the other thing is, let's not forget what we have in Ohio and the tradespeople that want to be in the trades, don't know what it is, but have an idea that it's dirty, doesn't pay well, there's no future there. Years ago, we decided that you got to change that stigma, and you got to build the way that people want to come to your job sites, and they want good restroom facilities, and they want areas to park and be safe, and they want taken care of. And once you start to do that, people realize this is a profession. It's not a trade. You're all professionals, and it started to grow like crazy. I was talking with Vanessa, who manages our workforce development, and there were 130 people in this program we call the STAR program that never had any interest in being in construction at all. Never even thought it was going to be a part of their life. And over the last 3 years, they're now in the business, and they've brought more. So we can't forget about what's here locally. We got to tap those resources, show people that all of these projects we have going on, from the professional services to ODOT, that there's an amazing future in this work. It pays really, really well. And quite frankly, the work isn't going to end, and it's up to you how hard you want to work.
Yeah.
I would just add to that's exactly true for the Department of Transportation. We do a lot of recruiting. We work with the Ohio Contractor Association, work with the Engineers Association. We've got programs with them to bring skilled workers in or get people interested in being highway technicians or being construction inspection on highway projects. We work with Columbus State, Stark State, Sinclair with some programming, reaching out to those folks. And I'll just give you an example of the Brent Spence Bridge, which is the largest project we have in the state that we're working on, the largest one. To get people interested and try to find other subcontractors and find people who want to work in the heavy highway industry, they had 140 different community outreach, and with 700 trades that they reached out to say, there's a place for you, we can use you on this project, because there's so many parts to an 8-mile corridor and a companion bridge and all of the partners who are involved in that project. So we work very hard from the Department of Transportation to get people into the heavy highway industry, because we need them. We need surveyors. Everything starts with a surveyor. Got to have some surveyors.
Any surveyors? Raise your hand.
Well, I got to tell you.
There you go.
Most surveyors, you're younger than me, but most surveyors are around my age. I'm 62, and most of them are around that 60-year mark. So we need some younger people to come into this industry.
Well, I think it's exciting because if you look at most schools today, the traditional schools, they are creating career tech pathways that haven't even been there in the past for not just 9th through 12th graders, but middle schoolers. And so to that effect, I think, kudos to our school districts who are trying to find new ways to make sure that we build that infrastructure of the workforce here. I know we have time for a few more questions before we turn it to questions, but I am curious. A lot of people say we're growing too fast, right? So of course you're going to have the pro growth, and then you're going to have people who are very concerned, saying that maybe we're growing too fast to handle. How do you feel? Do you have concerns or maybe hopes for this rapid development that you're seeing?
So I would tell you that we don't at ODOT, because we're not the political people. We're here to help. So if the state's growing, it's good for the state. Ohio is the heart of it all, and ODOT is happy to be a part of that. We just, there are just limits to what everyone can do, and I think that's what you have to think through. I think you have to think through what kind of projects can you actually handle, what makes sense, what should you be doing, and then the flexibility. of who can help. Because ODOT is highly regulated. It's a highly regulated agency. But we do have port authorities who have more flexibility for funding. We do have SIB loans for the locals. Those are state and structure bank SIB loans. So we can keep things moving. And we have, in this budget, for this next coming budget, we have $900 million that 10% of the budget is going to the locals because it's incredibly important. They have 84% of the roads and they have 67% of the bridges.
Connor?
I think it comes back to what we were talking about earlier with partnership, in my opinion. I think, for us to grow Anduril in the community, we have to grow responsibly. And I think to do that, you have to work in transparency on what we're planning to grow over time in terms of total headcount growth. But then you have to be willing, as like any relationship, kind of give and take. And so, if we can't build roads in certain areas or we need to slow roll certain things for certain reasons, as Anduril, we're here to kind of work with y'all on those specific things. And I think we have talked a lot about kind of questions and concerns from the community, whether it be to road development or how we want to smartly build out the airport to not disrupt traffic or flow. And that is just a responsible thing to do. And a little tongue-in-cheek would be absolutely insane for us if we didn't take that approach. We want the community to be successful. We need the community to be successful for us to be successful. And to do that, you just got to be good partners in all of this.
Makes sense. Yeah. Matt?
No, we're not the Department of No, but we are the department who has to tell you realistically environmental issues, things that happen. So I think Mr. Construction and Turner there, you can tell them that sometimes people say you're going to build something and you're like, okay.
Matt?
I wish I was Mr. Turner. No, wouldn't be up here today. These don't pay very
Turner,
well. I've
you're
learned
part
either,
of the
so.
Turner family.
It's about responsible, diverse growth. And I went back to it earlier, I talked about it. We're from hospitals, healthcare, Ohio State, Fortune 500 companies, bioscience, pharmaceutical, weapons manufacturing. Like, we are so diverse here, and I think we do a great job of that. There's plenty of communities that have tried the one direction, and they're stumped right now, or they haven't done the right thing with mass transportation. And I think we're at the edge of all of this stuff right now, and I think we can figure it out. But I think everyone should have concerns in the right way, but I think we're pointing in a good direction. And I think if listen to everyone is saying here, we're all singing the same tune.
Great. Joe?
And Angela, I think we're doing it just about right. Okay, we were behind on a few things. We were behind on an airport terminal. We were behind on transit. We were behind on some things. But you have to do things based on metrics. People will say, and I know this is surprising to all of you, there are second guessers out there who have told us, you're not building this terminal big enough, or you're building it too large, or you're building it too small. You have to make decisions at a snapshot in time when you can gather as much information as you can. But I do think we are Columbus, and we're doing it right. Everything that we do is being looked at, and it's being, everybody, probably many of you in the room are participatory in the decision making. There's a lot going on, but it feels right to me.
Great. We're going to, in just a few minutes, move to our question portion of this, so from our live stream and in person. So if you're here and you have a question for our panels, if you can make your way to the microphone in the back of the room now, that would be great. That way we can kind of keep this flowing. And if you're joining us on YouTube, I'm not sure where the camera is, but type your questions into the chat, and then that way we can ask those questions, and Doug will do that. But I do have one final question for our great panelists today. So think about this super quick, and then maybe like in 30 seconds. If you could add one major development project to your list, like your dream project, no money in the world, right? Like you can just pay for it. What would it be?
So for me, it'd be a beach, Angela.
It would be a what?
A beach.
A beach?
Yeah.
So Port Columbus could be actually a port of something? Got it. All right, that's easy. I'll get you some sand.
Yeah.
Director?
So if it were me, it's already one that's undergoing, but if I could snap my fingers and get it done, it'd be the Brent Spence Bridge corridor and that companion bridge, because that is incredibly vital to the state of Ohio and the nation.
It is. Fantastic. Connor's thinking.
Our team is, if we could snap our fingers and just have all the construction be done tomorrow, I think that would be the answer. We got 5 million square feet to build, and have that be done tomorrow would be a very nice thing.
Okay.
I can help you with that. For me, it's rail, and it's some sort of like Union Station. I mean, I lived in Denver, and having the rail line and the development that followed along it, I mean, it's billions upon billions of dollars. It's very difficult. It doesn't make sense in every community. But I always thought that what Denver did with that and how the community kind of grew around it, that's the ultimate.
Maybe transportation of tomorrow is like a hover rail, right, Joe?
So Angela, all kidding aside, I think that we all have to really appreciate what we have here in Columbus. I think because we're all so busy doing what we're doing that we miss what's really happening here, and it is extraordinary. And having grown up in Detroit and having worked around the world and multiple businesses in Europe, Columbus is extraordinary, and you're all contributing to that. But we have to keep moving. We have to keep an urgency. We have to be all gas, no brake, and I think we are.
Well, I've loved this conversation, so thank you all so much. But we have Doug Buchanan waiting for me back in the back of the room. He's with CMC, curating some questions from our live stream. And also, again, if you're here in person, you have some questions, feel free to make your way back over to Doug. But Doug, how about our first question of the day?
Angela, thank you so much, and thank you to today's panelists for a great conversation. If you have a question for today's panelists, please do join us here at the microphone. As Angela mentioned, if you're watching online, type your question into the chat. We'll try to get to as many as we can today. Great questions at CMC always have two things in common. They take less than 30 seconds to ask, and what punctuation mark does a question end with?
Question mark.
A question mark. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to launch us off with this one from Patricia Powers. Joe, this one is for you. Is there a movement afoot to get an airline hub in Columbus?
So thank you. That's a great question, and I get asked that at least 100 times a day. I'm kidding, but pretty regularly. Columbus is not situated to be a hub. Detroit Metropolitan Airport, where I was the CEO, is a hub. Columbus is a very active, well-situated, and aggressive community as it relates to adding air service. But a hub, it is described as a medium hub by the Federal Aviation Administration, but a hub in the true sense that you have at Chicago O'Hare, or you have in New York, or you have at LAX, Columbus is not situated to be that. Remember, the airlines select hubs. The airlines love Columbus airports, and they continue to grow here, but we are not set up to be a hub.
Before you go to the next question, we are set up to be a national hub, $140 million that we're competing for with the feds for an air mobility hub in Springfield. So we're set up for that. So anybody has any strings with anybody in the Federal Highway Administration or with our congressman? I've been there. I told them two things matter. I said, we got to build Spent Bridge, and you got to let us have that national hub for air mobility in Ohio. So
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. I'm Bill Wayhoff with Steptoe & Johnson, and we have at least 4 major hospital healthcare systems in our area that are just growing by leaps and bounds. And I guess one question is that going to continue? Another question is, what transportation challenges does that present? And third, does that attract you to this area? Is that one of the factors that attracted you to the area? So that's my question.
I think it's looking at.
So from a transportation perspective, it's the same as with anything. We like to know, we want to be involved. That's why we have great partnerships with all the locals, including the private sector. So we know what you want to do, so we can see where impact's going to be. Because it does matter as to maybe programs or projects that we've got going, we've got in the hopper, or maybe the locals have, that we know what people need and what's going to happen, so we can try to meet those needs and build the right thing. Because you don't want to build something and have to tear it up, because it's not going to serve your purpose. And we, as I said, ODOT are helpers. We're here to help. We truly are, to make the congestion, safety, position the state for the future, and be accessible for everybody, for all their needs they need, either coming through and going through the state of Ohio or staying in the state of Ohio.
He also had a question for you.
Yeah, I think to answer your question directly, yeah, it's one of the factors we looked at. We had months and months of analyses looking at what the infrastructure was, not just for hospitals, but schools, dentistry offices, roads, just everything you can think of to think as we grow from the initial 300 to 4,000. What the employee base would need in the surrounding community. And I think one of the kind of touchstones of today is partnership, and a lot of the discussions that we had with the state was around how they're investing in these types of infrastructure over the long term to support the workforce. And we were really, really surprised to the upside by how thorough and how thoughtful they were about the things that were going really well and the things that they need to invest in. And so, yeah, it was a really key component as we thought about the broader kind of lifestyle of the employees as they called a Columbus home.
Yeah, just so you know, the statewide study looked at workforce as one of the elements that they looked at in determining where we should be building the roads, what we should be considering.
Thank you very much. By the way, that air mobility hub sounds like a great topic for a future CMC forum. That just popped in my head. That sounds great. A question for Matt. Matt, can you speak more about the transformation people can expect to see at the state fairgrounds?
Yeah, we hit it a little bit earlier. So if you went out there as a kid, the state fair is the big thing, right? That's what happens. And for years, they kind of built a building here, built a building there. It was maybe a community center. Meanwhile, infrastructure lacked, and all the things that, what I say, underground, just never followed it. So that job has almost $100 million of stuff that go underground that bring it into the modern era. And we've spent a year and a half bringing that up, and what'll go back over it? It won't be asphalt. It'll be some way better finishes, more pavers. It's going to have the feel of what I think everyone thinks it can be and what it should be. On top of that, it's going to have 3 new buildings that'll between equestrian centers, multi-use centers, because the intent is to take the fairgrounds into the next stage that some of the other communities have, because there's a lot of pressure on the fairgrounds to keep having things like the quarter horse and some of the events they have, and your neighboring states are building things right now to try to take those away. So I think what's going to show up there will surprise a lot of people. Of course, the carousel, and I think that's going to be great. But it's unique, and it's probably one of the most complicated yet well-deserving jobs I think I've ever been involved in. But the fit, the finish, what they do, that central corridor, how it's weaved into Ohio's backbone, and the revenue generation after it for years to come, it'll be second to none, and I think we'll stay right at the top of the class with it.
Hi, my name is Remington Lyman, and I'm 30. And my question is, what are some things that the younger generation can do to help Columbus grow?
Boom. Wow. I love that question.
Are you from Ohio originally?
Originally from Connecticut, I got recruited here for the Ohio State Rifle Team in 2012.
Call all your friends in Connecticut and tell them to come here. I mean, it's true. We have some big jobs right now that we have throughout our 48 offices. We have about 120 professional travelers here, ranging in salaries very high to mid. And people are seeing Columbus, and a lot of the conversations are, do you want to come to Columbus? And the answer is, I don't think so. And then you bring them here, you have dinner with them, you show them the community, you see what they're about, and then they look at home prices too, and all these static things you're talking about. And yes, absolutely healthcare. And they say, I think I'd like to stay. So I think it's the generation you're in is the generation we got to look at now to say, you want to be here. You want to be in these kind of mid-markets that are growing like crazy, because that's where the jobs are, the energy is, and we got to get the word out.
Yeah, and I think from the department's perspective, the young what you guys want is what's going to matter. I mean, you're changing what you think. We're multimodal at the department. It's not just all cars and trucks. I will tell you, the future shows we're going to have a growth of cars, we're going to have a growth of trucks, so we have to deal with that, especially on the interstates. But the cities, Columbus and Cincinnati and Cleveland, they're reinventing themselves into this more of a space where you want rapid bus transit, like the Linkus project. So, and ODOT wants to be a partner with that. Now, transit is mostly a local opportunity, but you do cross our roads, and we do need to be aware. We do need to make sure that we're all on the same page of where diverted traffic may go, either onto the highways or out into other neighborhoods. But so I've done a lot of speaking for the last 6 months that I've been the director. I've talked to the transit folks. I've been just about everywhere, and I see that young people, and it's not just young people. People my age and older, we get to the point where we don't really want to drive cars either, but we're very active and we want to be out. And so we want that ability to be able to, as you said, if you could snap your fingers and bring rail back. And if you had rail, we never had gotten rid of it, we'd be in a totally different place. But so I say stay involved, get involved, let people know what it is you want, because you can impact what gets built.
Joe, were you going to ask?
I was just going to say, Remington is, minus the beach, of course, is there a better town for young people than Columbus, Ohio in this country?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you for that. So carry the torch.
Yeah.
I have a 24-year-old. Carry the torch. And we need you. We need you to succeed. So please bring your friends. You seem like a very intelligent guy, and go Bucks. So I'll say that, even though I didn't go there. I went to Michigan State. But sorry about that. But anyway, there really is excitement. Young people love Columbus. All the schools, all the universities, all the energy. It's extraordinary here.
If I can add, I'm curious in this room, right? How many of us are transplants, right? You weren't born or raised here. Just like look at the hands up in this room, right? These are the folks that came here at whatever age we were. I was 25 years ago, so I was like 2. Just kidding. But seriously, we chose to stay here, right? And make it our home for all those reasons. And so it's more of word of mouth, but then also that recruiting process, and as we recruit more people in, we're also curating the talent that's already here. And I think that is just so critical to making this really still feel like that hometown feel while we boom. That's my editorial. It's not gonna be on 10 TV, but that's what I have to feel. So, okay, Doug, next question.
Angela, thank you. Steve Swift with a question for the director. With the fast rate of growth in the Central Ohio region, does it make sense to multiply growth predictions and build around that? And he says, I'm referring to projects like the 270 to 71 ramp that seemed insufficient to travel the traffic volume after it was completed.
So I can't speak to what decisions are made in the past by engineers as they developed and what they knew at the time and what they thought would be proper. But I do think that we're trying to be more cognizant, and the department is, in terms of, are we building right? Are we taking into consideration, which is that study that we did. It's a study that goes out 10, 20, 30 years into the future, trying to tell you what you can anticipate. I'll just give you an example with the Brent Spent Bridge. There was an argument of whether or not you should make the companion bridge a 4-lane or a 5. And, it's clearly, if you look at some of the engineering projections, they say, well, 4 lanes is good for 20 years. Well, we shouldn't do it for 20 years. We already seen what happened down there with all the bridges and the Brent Spent Bridge. So we should build it for 5. We need the 5 lanes. So I think thinking in those ways, yes, we need to do a better job, I think, and I think we are tooling up to do that.
We have about 2 minutes left for one final question.
Yeah, hi, my name is Luis Anastasio, kind of piggyback off some of the earlier topics asked, and with all the talk about all the talent moving into Columbus and how expensive it is. Question for Anduril and Turner. How do you guys address the concerns of low-income families in areas where you're building these facilities, particularly regarding potential impacts to the communities and the livelihoods of the members of the community?
So Luis, I can speak to what we're doing as it relates to Columbus Airports and the construction project. So we have a 25% diversity business partner goal. We're currently just short of 26%. We have established prevailing wage on for everyone gets a prevailing wage. I can't speak to the community and how we're affecting other developments outside of the airport terminal, but we're trying to do our part.
Luis, I love the question. I mean, Anduril is directly trying to contribute by creating jobs, high-paying, high-quality jobs. And it's the only way we know how to contribute to something like that. And I think as we think about supporting the community, it's going to stem as we grow over the next decade to working on education, making sure that when people graduate, they have the skills and training that they would need to come work at Arsenal One. And then once they're in Arsenal One, as we had mentioned earlier, it's treating them well and giving them purpose and pride in the work that they're doing. And that is what we're looking to do in Arsenal One, and I think we'll get there over the next decade.
Yeah, and I think I go back to our trades and what we're doing. We started something called the Turner School of Construction Management almost 60 years ago, and it was about finding people that wanted to start businesses and get involved in businesses that weren't able to do it, didn't have the finances, or were considered in groups that were typically thought not to be able to. And it's something we've held true to. And there's businesses that we have created that started with 1 or 2 people and shown them the way that now have hundreds of people and are doing millions upon millions of dollars a year. It's got to be thoughtful, and it can't all be done day one, and it's going to take time, but The trades are a great way to get into it. And I looked at a metric before I came here. In 2024, just on 7 of our jobs, there was almost 7 million man-hours of very high-paying wages on those projects. And we have endless opportunities and openings. And we're happy for anyone to raise their hand that wants to be involved. And it's just something we do as a day-to-day business now. We don't think differently about it. And it can only get better from there.
Highway projects, we have goals, disability advantaged highway goals, small business goals. We bring in, we work with the small businesses and disadvantaged businesses to get them into the highway projects. And our projects also work very closely with a lot of folks who want to reconnect communities and do a lot of things. And those are built into our project, and we're governed by Title VI and Title 23. So these are civil rights divisions that we're governed by as well, that we have to comply with. So we don't just mow through neighborhoods.
Time for more questions. Sadly, we don't, but thank you all. These were great questions, a great afternoon. I am getting the rap signal from Doug. My former producers will tell you I never listen. But I will today because we all have places to go. So I'm going to send things back over to Annie. Thank you so much.
Everyone, I hope you found today's community conversation informative. We're all excited about the growth that is coming to Central Ohio. Thank you to the sponsors of today's forum, Barton Mallow, the Columbus Regional Airport Authority, HNTB, Public Sector Consulting, and Turner Construction. We are also grateful to the presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch, and the Ellis for hosting us, and our very special appreciation to today's speakers, Pamela Boratyn, Connor Brogan, Matt Kunz, Joe Nardone, and our host, Angela Ann. Please give them a round of applause. Please make plans now to join us at next Wednesday, right here at the Ellis for Keeping the Columbus Promise. We'll welcome another panel of Central Ohio leaders who will unpack this great game-changing education initiative. Thank you, everyone. We could not do this without you, and have a wonderful afternoon.